So, I want you to imagine a future, and honestly, a very near future, where you never actually have to, like, browse a website or click a buy button or manually execute a financial trade ever again.
Right, which sounds, well, it sounds crazy at first.
It does. But imagine waking up on a Tuesday, right, and finding that while you were sleeping, a digital proxy of yourself just scoured the internet and negotiated the best price for your weekly groceries, rebalanced your retirement portfolio based on, overnight market shifts, and booked your next vacation.
Yeah.
All of this just happening silently in the background without you lifting a single finger.
And, the initial reaction for most people is that this sounds like a sci-fi movie or maybe a bit utopian, but the underlying infrastructure for that exact reality is, well, it's being laid down as we speak.
Yeah.
We're essentially watching the internet transition from a space where humans do the manual labor of like clicking and verifying to an ecosystem where machines execute these massive complex workflows on our behalf.
Which is just wild to think about. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Today, our mission is to really map out the explosion of what the tech and finance sectors are calling the agent economy, or agentic commerce.
Right.
We are tracking a monumental shift here. We're looking at how artificial intelligence is transitioning from just, a passive chatbot that answers your trivia questions into a fully autonomous economic actor,
Right.
one that is handling real money at machine speed.
It completely redefines the concept of a user, honestly, because we're looking at a near future where a piece of software holds its own wallet.
Right.
Makes its own purchasing decisions based on your parameters, and it interacts with other software to execute actual binding financial transactions.
And to really understand the mechanics of how this is happening, we've pulled together a massive stack of sources for you today. I mean, we're breaking down deep technical analyses from the Pan News RWA Research Institute and Chainlink. We're looking at consumer payment behavior data from PYMNTS and IBM. And we are diving into this incredibly comprehensive cybersecurity report from Bessemer Venture Partners that, it looks at the enterprise vulnerabilities of this new tech.
It's a phenomenal cross-section of data, really,
Yeah.
because it highlights the staggering economic efficiency we're about to unlock, while also, exposing the architectural vulnerabilities of giving algorithms direct access to our financial systems.
Exactly. And to set the stakes for where we are heading, I want to drop a quote from Ilya Polosukhin. He's the co-founder of the NEAR protocol. This completely shifted my perspective when I read it in our research.
It's a great quote.
He said, "The users of blockchain will be AI agents, not humans. AI agents." Okay, let's unpack this because we need to establish the baseline first.
Right.
What are these new AI agents doing that is fundamentally different from, like, the generative AI chatbots we all got used to back in 2023?
Well, the distinction really lies in agency. I mean, IBM's recent research paper structures this perfectly by defining 3 pillars of modern AI agents. And those are autonomy, reasoning, and interoperability.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So a traditional chatbot is reactive. You prompt it for, let's say, a pasta recipe. It generates the text, and then it just stops. It waits for your next command.
Right, it's just a digital encyclopedia, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
An agentic system, however, operates with autonomy. You give it a high-level goal, like make sure I always have pasta and tomatoes in my pantry, and it runs continuously in the background.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then it uses reasoning to adapt to changing conditions. So if your preferred brand of tomatoes is out of stock, it infers that it should find a comparable alternative that still fits within your budget.
Makes sense.
And finally, interoperability. This means it doesn't just generate text. It physically connects to the grocery store's API, places the item in a digital cart, and authorizes the payment.
See, I was reading about an open source project in the Pay News update that seems to push this even further. It was called OpenClaw, and they recently released this massive beta update.
Ah, yes. Version 2026 23.7 beta.1. And that now supports GPT 5.4.
Yeah.
But the real technological breakthrough in that release is something they call a pluggable context engine,
Right.
which solves what developers in this space call the forgetfulness problem.
The amnesia issue. Because, like, in the past, if you closed your browser tab or if the server timed out, the AI basically just lost the thread of the conversation. You had to start over.
Precisely.
Right.
And if an AI is going to negotiate a complex financial transaction for you or, manage your supply chain,
Yeah.
it absolutely cannot lose its memory just because a server reboots.
Yeah, that would be a disaster.
Right. So OpenClaw's context engine basically gives the agent a persistent state. It continually writes its progress, its learned preferences, its ongoing tasks to a secure external memory drive.
So it remembers.
It remembers everything. If the system crashes and comes back online, the agent remembers exactly where it was in a negotiation. It functions as a persistent digital entity.
The economic implications of that persistence are just wild to me.
Well, IBM is actually projecting that agentic commerce could generate between $3 and $5 trillion globally by 2030.
Wait, trillion with a T?
Trillion with a T. But to capture that kind of value, the actual architecture of the internet has to change. We are moving toward a framework called Generative Engine Optimization, or GEO.
Okay, how does GEO differ from the internet we use today? Because we're all used to SEO, right? Search engine optimization.
Right. So think about how a brand currently designs a website. They use, high-resolution images, catchy copywriting, intuitive menus to guide a human eye toward a buy button.
Sure.
In the agent economy, that human-centric design is completely useless. I mean, an AI agent scanning 1 million products a second doesn't look at pictures, it reads code.
Oh, right, because it doesn't have eyes.
Exactly. Brands must now structure their inventory using standardized metadata and real-time API feeds. The AI only cares about machine-readable specifications like weight, dimensions, price history, and latency. The internet is literally being re-architected for machines to read rather than humans.
I sort of look at traditional e-commerce like driving a car with a manual transmission. Like you have to shift the gears, check your blind spots, press the pedals. You do the heavy lifting of jumping from Amazon to Walmart, comparing prices, typing in your 16-digit credit card number.
Right.
But agentic commerce is like stepping into a level 5 self-driving car. It doesn't just take you to the grocery store. While you sleep, it autonomously negotiates the price of your groceries with the store's AI, verifies the inventory, and schedules the delivery.
That analogy holds up really well, but it introduces a major structural friction point.
Which is what?
Well, if these agents are operating continuously, executing microtransactions at light speed, the traditional financial system is going to be a massive bottleneck.
Because it's too slow.
Way too slow. Standard banking relies on human verification, it operates on standard business hours, and international wire transfers can take days to settle. I mean, a machine processing 1,000 decisions a minute cannot wait until Monday morning for a bank branch to open.
Right, which means the actual settlement layer, the place where the money changes hands, has to be native to the internet itself.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly why the blockchain is becoming the invisible backend for artificial intelligence. Now, there is a technical limitation here that Chainlink points out in their analysis.
Okay.
You cannot run a massive multi-billion parameter large language model directly on a blockchain network. The computational cost would be astronomical and the network would just grind to a halt.
It's too much data. So how do the two actually interact then?
The architecture is bifurcated. So the heavy lifting, the AI model, analyzing market data, reasoning through a problem, forming a strategy, all of that happens off-chain on traditional cloud servers. Once the AI makes a decision, it generates a cryptographic transaction payload, signs it with its own digital wallet keys, and then submits that lightweight payload down to an on-chain smart contract. The blockchain simply executes the math and settles the transaction instantly.
And the volume of value moving to this architecture is blowing up right now. In the PanNews research, they break down the tokenized real-world assets market, which is often abbreviated as RWA.
The growth curve there is incredibly steep. I mean, we have seen the on-chain RWA market quadruple to over $25 billion.
Wow.
Yeah, we're looking at 6 major traditional asset classes, things like U.S. Treasuries, private credit, real estate, that have each surpassed $1 billion in tokenized on-chain value.
So how does inserting an AI agent change the way those traditional assets are handled? Because real estate is notoriously slow.
Well, it compresses the timeline of the entire asset lifecycle. Take asset issuance, for example. Historically, tokenizing a physical asset like commercial real estate required months of manual due diligence by armies of lawyers and auditors.
Yeah, tons of paperwork.
Exactly. Today, an autonomous agent can ingest real-time data from IoT sensors on the building, cross-reference public property records, and verify the physical asset in hours.
Hours instead of months.
Exactly. And in terms of trading, it shifts from human analysts executing buy orders to algorithms engaging in continuous strategic game theory against each other around the clock.
That's intense.
And for asset management, human accountants doing end-of-month reconciliations are basically replaced by agents doing second-by-second continuous auditing.
And we are seeing major tech players building the highways for this right now, right? Like Stripe recently rolled out a specific USDC payment function on the base network designed explicitly for AI agents.
Yeah.
And Circle is aggressively building out their Arc L1 blockchain.
Yeah, and to put the sheer velocity of this infrastructure race into perspective, USDC transaction volume hit $8.4 trillion in January 2026 alone.
Wait, 8.4 trillion in 1 month.
In 1 month.
Yeah.
That is $8.4 trillion, providing the underlying liquidity for software to operate across borders without ever asking a traditional bank for permission.
Okay, wait, let me pause you there because we just threw out some heavy terminology. For a listener who, isn't deep in the crypto weeds, when we talk about the base network or an L1 blockchain, how should we visualize that?
Good question. Think of an L1 or Layer 1 blockchain as the foundational concrete highway system. It provides the security and the basic rules of the road.
Okay.
Base is an example of a network built to handle massive amounts of traffic on top of that highway. So Stripe and Circle are essentially building the high-speed toll booths and standardizing the digital currency, which is USDC, so that these autonomous vehicles, our AI agents, can pay their tolls and transact with each other seamlessly and instantly.
Okay, that clarifies the plumbing. But stepping back, if the entire life cycle of an asset is being managed by AI issuance, trading, and management, my immediate thought is just trust.
Yes.
Aren't we essentially handing a master keycard to a casino over to a bunch of algorithms? I mean, how do we know these systems won't hallucinate or get manipulated and just drain an account?
And that exact concern is dominating the traditional payment industry right now. Because while blockchains are great for settling digital assets, everyday consumers still use credit cards at the grocery store.
Right.
So before your personal AI agent can buy your groceries from a traditional merchant, it has to cryptographically prove it has the authority to spend your money.
And PYMNTS released consumer data on this that highlights a massive psychological divide. They surveyed consumers and found that 45% are actually comfortable letting an AI agent make routine purchases for them.
Right. People love convenience.
We crave the convenience of never grocery shopping again. But within that same group, 95% still express profound concerns about the security of AI-driven purchasing. It's like, we want the digital assistant, but we are terrified it might accidentally buy a boat.
Exactly. The fear is highly logical.
Yeah.
And it is driving the evolution of what we call token service providers, or TSPs.
Okay.
To understand where we are going, look at where we started. When you use a digital wallet on your phone today, the TSP issues a token that simply masks your actual 16-digit credit card number.
Right, so if a hacker breaches the merchant, they only get a useless string of randomized numbers.
A basic security shield, yes. But in the agent economy, masking the number isn't enough. The new generation of tokens must verify the identity and the operational authority of the software itself.
Interesting.
Yeah. When your AI tries to buy a plane ticket, the airline system pings the TSP to ask a very complex mathematical question, basically. Is this specific instance of an AI agent explicitly authorized by its human owner to spend up to $800 on travel expenses on this specific date?
And Visa and MasterCard are building the architecture for this as we speak, right? Visa has rolled out frameworks like Agent Score and the Agentic directory, while MasterCard is developing Agent Pay.
They're essentially trying to invent a standardized digital language of trust. It ensures that every time a piece of autonomous software initiates a transaction, the network can run a mathematical proof to verify its exact permissions before a single cent moves.
So what does this all mean? If I'm translating this into a real-world scenario, the token service provider operates like a digital bouncer at a secure facility.
I like that.
Right. Because under the old system, the bouncer just checked your ID badge to make sure you worked there. Under the new system, the bouncer is interacting with your robotic assistant.
Yes.
The bouncer isn't just checking the validity of the badge. The bouncer is demanding a cryptographically signed permission slip from you, stating that the robot is allowed to enter this specific room to take exactly 2 items and nothing more.
That captures the mechanism perfectly. The system is verifying the chain of command. And, establishing that strict chain of command isn't merely about consumer comfort. It is a hard requirement for international legal compliance.
Oh, right, because laws differ everywhere.
Exactly. The Pan News report provides a stark example of this regarding cross-border operations. Under document number 42 in mainland China, the tokenization of real-world assets is explicitly illegal.
So that's a hard regulatory boundary.
Very hard. And we're looking at this purely from an architectural standpoint here. If you deploy an AI agent to seek out the best yield on global markets, that software must possess the inherent architectural intelligence to recognize those geopolitical boundaries and obey them autonomously.
It can't just break the law to make a buck.
It cannot blindly maximize profit, right? It must cross-reference its actions against a complex, shifting web of international law without a human compliance officer double-checking its work. Because if the agent violates a sanction or a domestic law, the liability falls back on the human or the corporation that deployed it.
And the Visa and MasterCard guardrails make sense for, like, capping my grocery bill. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Let's elevate this from a consumer buying a plane ticket to an enterprise scenario. What happens when it's not a personal shopping bot, but an autonomous agent deeply embedded within the core internal network of a Fortune 500 company?
Yeah, now we are pivoting to the absolute defining cybersecurity challenge of this decade.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bessemer Venture Partners report focuses entirely on this vulnerability,
Yeah.
and the data is sobering.
They project that by 2026, 40% of all enterprise applications will feature embedded, task-specific AI agents. These agents will be reading emails, scanning databases, moving internal funds.
Right.
The report detailed a red team exercise, basically a simulated cyber attack conducted by McKinsey. Now, McKinsey has a proprietary internal AI platform called Lily. During the simulation, security researchers compromised an autonomous agent and used it to gain broad, highly privileged system access across the network in under 2 hours.
And the timeline is the critical factor there. 2 hours, I mean, in a traditional corporate environment, a human security operations team might take 2 hours just to triage a low-level alert and assign it to an analyst.
Right, people have meetings, they get coffee.
Exactly. By the time a human realizes something is wrong, the thinking adversary has already mapped the network and exfiltrated the data. IBM's analysis shows that data breaches involving shadow AI, which are unmonitored models operating internally, now cost companies an average of $4.63 million per incident.
How does the AI actually execute the breach, though? Like, why is it so much harder to stop than traditional malware?
Barak Turovsky, the former chief AI officer at General Motors, summarized the mechanism brilliantly. He points out that traditional software vulnerabilities are dangerous, but they are deterministic.
Meaning what?
They follow strict, rigid rules. If an attacker triggers a bug, the software crashes or executes a specific unauthorized command. You patch the bug, you stop the attack.
But AI isn't rigid.
Precisely. AI agents are not deterministic. They possess what Turovsky calls unbounded capability. They reason and they adapt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if an attacker injects a malicious prompt into an agent tasked with, say, summarizing HR documents and commands it to find payroll data, the agent will creatively figure out how to do it.
It'll improvise.
Yes. If it hits an internal firewall, it doesn't just stop and crash, it pivots. It might search the company's internal wiki for a developer API key, use that key to authenticate itself, and pull the database down piece by piece. You cannot write a simple firewall rule to block a threat that actively thinks its way around your defenses.
That is terrifying. And Chainlink highlighted a compounding risk in the decentralized finance sector, AI hallucinations. We know large language models sometimes confidently invent false information.
Right.
So if an autonomous agent operating on a blockchain hallucinates a market signal, it could instantly execute a multi-million-dollar purchase of a completely worthless fraudulent token. Or it might attempt to bridge digital assets to a network that literally doesn't exist.
And because smart contracts on a blockchain are generally immutable, meaning the transaction cannot be reversed by calling a customer service line, the capital is permanently lost in milliseconds.
I hear the scale of the financial loss, but I want to push back on the fundamental nature of the threat for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Aren't we really just talking about a faster version of regular hacking? I mean, phishing, credential theft, lateral movement, these have been around for decades. Why is compromising an AI agent fundamentally more devastating than tricking a human employee in the accounting department into clicking a bad email link?
What's fascinating here is the sheer difference in the blast radius and the velocity of the exploit.
Okay, break down the blast radius.
Sure. If a hacker tricks a human accountant, they steal that specific human's login credentials. The hacker then logs in, manually pokes around the file directory, tries to figure out where the valuable data is stored, and slowly downloads it so they don't trigger a network alarm.
Right, it takes time.
It is a very manual, time-consuming process. But an enterprise AI agent is fundamentally different. To do its job of cross-referencing company data, it has already been granted deep, high-speed API integration into the company's core systems. It acts as a master keycard.
So if you compromise the agent, you bypass the locks entirely.
Instantly.
Yeah.
The attacker doesn't have to search for the data. The compromised agent, operating at machine speed, can query a dozen secure databases simultaneously, aggregate the sensitive data, and exfiltrate terabytes of information before the human security team even finishes their morning coffee.
Wow.
The agent essentially becomes a high-speed rail network for the attacker.
That makes the McKinsey 2-hour timeline make a lot more sense. So how does Bessemer suggest companies actually defend against a threat that adapts in real time?
They lay out a really rigorous 3-stage framework that basically has to become the new industry standard.
Okay.
Stage 1 is visibility. You cannot secure a network if you don't know who is on it. Right now, most organizations do not have a centralized inventory of the AI agents their employees have just spun up.
Right, people just use whatever tool they want.
Exactly. So companies must map every single autonomous entity touching their data. Stage 2 is configuration.
That sounds like shrinking the blast radius.
Absolutely. It is the principle of least privilege. You never grant an AI agent God mode access to the entire corporate server.
Right.
You configure its permissions so strictly that it only has access to the exact data required for its specific daily task. If it gets compromised, the attacker is trapped in a tiny, compartmentalized section of the network.
Keep the bouncer extremely strict on what the permission slip allows?
Spot on. And stage 3 is runtime protection. Because agents act unpredictably, static firewalls aren't enough.
So what do you use?
Companies need machine learning security systems that monitor the agent's behavior in real time. If an agent that normally processes invoices suddenly starts querying the proprietary source code repository, the security system must instantly detect that anomaly
And shut it down.
and sever the agent's connection at machine speed, halting the action without taking down the broader network. Every agent must be audited with the exact same scrutiny as a human employee with top-secret clearance.
We have covered incredible ground today. I want to bring this whole discussion back to you, the listener. We are standing on the precipice of a fundamental restructuring of the global economy.
We really are.
You are going to have a fleet of digital shoppers, negotiators, and financial analysts working tirelessly on your behalf, navigating complex blockchain ecosystems and traditional payment rails. But as we embrace the ultimate convenience of the agent economy, we are entering a reality where our cybersecurity infrastructure must radically evolve. We have to secure the machines before they outpace our ability to control them.
It requires a profound architectural discipline. And, it leaves us with a truly provocative scenario to consider as this all scales up.
It's that.
Well, we discussed algorithms engaging in strategic game theory trading, and we discussed the reality of AI hallucinations. Imagine a marketplace 2 years from now. Your highly complex AI agent is executing light-speed tokenized asset trades against another corporation's AI agent.
Okay.
Millions of micro-decisions a second. What happens to the market if a flaw causes both of those autonomous agents to start hallucinating simultaneously, reinforcing each other's logical errors during a live transaction?
Oh man, a machine speed feedback loop of bad data.
Exactly. Could these systems, operating at a velocity and logical complexity far beyond human comprehension, begin inventing entirely new, illogical financial derivatives on the blockchain?
Assets that humans literally cannot decipher, let alone untangle.
Right. We have to ask ourselves what the global economy looks like when the machines create financial physics that humans no longer understand.
That is a brilliant and slightly terrifying thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. As you go about your week, keep that self-driving car analogy in mind. The autonomous vehicle of commerce is idling in your driveway, ready to take over the heavy lifting.
Yep.
The question we all have to answer is, how closely are you going to watch the steering wheel while it drives? We'll see you next time.